This is Gemara and Yoma Daf Ayin Aleph. Today's shir is sponsored with a special schos shidduch for Shira Miriam Bas Reisel Gittel. The learning of the entire Chabura should be a tremendous schos that she should Zivak Hagain Bekarev. Of course, all the Chilim and Vemegachim Esarsham Simin Reisel Sar Bas Knendel. Ita Basian Bas Chaysei Yisrael Mendel is Pedro Shavlei Shomas Nami Vashav Higo Shulchan Shmuel Ben Tila. Dinam Khan Reisel Mechai Basin Lebrach Bas Musa Din Edom Machin Mendel Siviv and Figure Dever Nichilis Rana Tele Huva Rivka Bas Hashem Tele Sim Mechlester. Besoig Sharchali Israel as well as Shul Shchirach Vatalea Basita as well as Yisrael Chaim ben Devaira. We pick it up in the bottom of Ayin Amid Beis. We just finished a lengthy and perhaps heated discussion. What was the precise Avodah on Yom Kippur? When were all the karbanis brought? We know there are 5 tevilos and 10 times they washed their hands. We know there were 3 times they wore the Kohen Gadol wore the gold clothing vestments, 2 times the white vestments, gold, white, which we'll talk about more right now. But the point that we discussed yesterday was when were the carbon musa, particularly the 7 Seirim and the Seir Bachotz, was it part of the carbon tamid shal baikar, or was it part of the carbon tamid shal bein arabayim? Says the Gemara in the bottom of Ayin Amud Beis, 3 lines to the bottom, Kiddush Yadav V'Raglav. The Kohen Gadol again washed his hands and his legs, and just to mention something we saw in the past, that the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur washed his hands slightly different than every other day. He used a golden flask, a golden pitcher, a kitain shel zav, and not straight from the kiyar like the rest of the Kohanim. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara, it says in the Torah, again, now we're discussing the second time the Kohen Gadol puts on the big day lavan. This could be called stage number 4. Gold, white. Yesterday was this middle stage of gold, what was the different karbanos. Now we're back onto the white. The unique, we'll call it stage. Why is it unique? Because he puts on the white clothing to go back into Kodesh HaKodashim the second time in Yom Kippur. For which reason? Seemingly almost, I don't want to call it a silly reason, but very interesting. He's going back in just to pick up that which he left out. He's going back in to pick up the kaf and the machta, that which is left over there. Of course, we already know the reason, because we have Allah L'Moshe Sinai teaching me that he had to go 5 times mikvah, 10 times kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, and based over that, everything is a snowball that we figure out exactly the different stages, and that's what we know, that we have to insert this unique stage in the middle of the Avaida, which we spoke about previously, this middle stage breaking up the carbon musaf with the carbon tamish al bein arabayim, thereby allowing there to be 5 different stages as we have this middle stage right now. So says the Gemara, why did he come in right now? To take out the kaf of the keteris and the machta and the coals. Says the Gemara, because the entire Torah in Vayikra, the entire portion of Yom Kippur was set in order. Aside for this pasuk about removing the kaf and the machta, which is said out of order, as we just mentioned, is inserted in the middle. My time now we're going to explain just that. Rav Chisda Gemiri, like we just explained, there was a little bit of an introduction, but because we saw in the previous daf, Gemiri, we have a lach l'moshe Sinai. What's Allah L'Moshe Sinai? Chamesh tefillos v'asar kiddushin tayvel Kohen Gadol u'mekadosh b'yom. There were 5 times he went to the mikvah, 10 times he washed his hands and his legs on Yom Kippur. V'i amrik yisidron. And if you're going to read the Torah in order, ksivi loy mishkach zelo sholosh tefillos yishisha kiddushim. It's only going to be 3, like we mentioned, because if he goes and we have the beginning of the Avodah, big days off, and then we go big day lavan to go into Kodesh HaKodashim to do the par in the seir, the sprinkling of the blood inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, and on the parechas, and putting the blood inside the mizbech. And if within this stage, like the Torah is written, he also removes with him the kaf and the machta, then what would the next stage be? We're putting back on the big days off and finishing the Avodah. He'd be finished. He wouldn't have to go back into the Kodesh HaKodashim. Therefore, says the Gemara, because the Lach Mishmisaya must be that this pasuk telling me he goes back in to pick up the kaf and the machta must have been out of order. Therefore, we must insert in the middle, must put it in between the carbon musaf and the concluding Tarmin Shabin Arbayim and the Ketayres, and therefore we're going to have 5 different stages. Says the Gemara, Maskla Rav Zeir, how do you know? V'delma mafsle b'siyar nasa b'chutz. Maybe it's the siyar nasa b'chutz, that's what splits it up. Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaye Amar Kra, no, it's a special pasuk, says Abaye. V'yotza, he goes out. V'asa es oilasai, and he does his oila ve'el, and the pasuk concludes, and the ayil of the people. Meyitzia rishaina of an el of Eliam. For the first time he goes out, he has to do his aisle and the aisle of the people, and then we split it up with this going back in to pick up the kaf of the machta, and then we conclude with the rest of the avodah. Teretz number, that's Abaye's answer. Now says the Gemara, The reason Rav Chisda just explained that the reason we have five tevilas and Esther Kedusha Yadai Reglayim is because the pasuk was out of order. The pasuk telling me to go pick up the shovel and the spoon. Rav Amar, a bit of a different explanation. Amar Kra, it says in the Torah, Pashat es Big Diabad. It says in the pasuk in Aaron Hakayin comes into the oil mite, and what does he do? He takes off the Big Diabad, the white clothing. Shein Tamulaymar. The Torah didn't have to tell me that. Asher Lavash. Why do I have to say? He takes off the big debod that he was wearing. Obviously. Can you take off something that you're not wearing? Of course. If you're taking it off, it means you're wearing it. So why did the Torah single out and say Asher Lavash? To tell me he's wearing it a second time. And this is where, says Rava, we know that this is the second time he puts on the big debod. The second time he puts on the white clothing, because the fact that Torah is emphasized and singled out. Asher Lavash shows me it must be he wore prior, must be he wore previously, and that's what we know. There were 2 times he wore the big debod. Maskiv la Rav Shila. Going back to the first explanation of Rav Chisda, back to saying that we split up the Elav Elam with the going back in. A similar question that we said before. Answers the Gemara. Like we just said. Now we go back to the original Braisa. Namar ala Seder. The original, the entire parsha was written ala Seder in order. We said on the top of the Amud, Rav Chisda said, everything's in order, aside for going back in and picking up the kaf and the machta. Ask the Gemara, is that true? What do we do with the pasuk that says, first it says, that the fat of the chatas you bring in the mizbeach, and then it says, Vesir chatos. And now ve'ilu anan tanan. But we learned in the Mishnah not that way. What do we learn? Haroya is going gadlik shu kairein haroya par vesir and israfim. So what do we see? Vilu emuri chatos basar achi maktiluhu. That the chatos comes after that. But you just told me that the chatos comes before. So which way do you want it? If you go with the way the Torah says it, the chatos is first, the fats. If you go with the Mishnah, it's afterwards. Says the Gemara, no, it means from that pasuk, the pasuk of going in to pick up the kaf of the machta, ve'ilach, and the rest of the parsha, meaning go with the way the Mishnah said it. Go with the Mishnah like we quoted over here, 3 lines down, that says that the chatos is afterwards. Ask the Gemara, interesting. You just told me at some level the Torah was written out of order. It was a mistake, a mishabeshta. Why are you saying that? Say the Mishnah is a mistake. Say the Mishnah. I shouldn't say mistake. I say more mishabeshta. We have to change it. Why don't we say the Mishnah was written out of order? Answers the Gemara, Amar Abayi, Amar Kra, it says in the Torah, Veha Mishaleach, Veha Sayrif. 2 psukim that are very similar. And from there we speak out and we have a Gzir Shava, Ma Mishaleach, the Meikara, Av Sayrif, the Meikara. Just like the Mishaleach, the sending away of the seer La Azazel, to was earlier, Af Sayrif, so to the burning of the Ayil was also Demei Ikara was earlier, and that's the reason why the Mishnah was correct and not the Psukim. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Adrabah, Ma Sayrif the Hashta, Amishaleach the Hashta. Again, whenever we have 2 Psukim, we never know which is the Iker. So we thought we should learn out from Mishaleach, from Sayrif, from Mishaleach. Says the Gemara, maybe the opposite. Maybe you should say the Ma Sayrif the Hashta, Mishaleach the Hashta. But Mishaleach the Meikara Mashma. So answers the Gemara, no. The Ha Mishaleach, the word itself and the one who sends, has an emphasis and shows that it's referring back to earlier. Says the Gemara, another teres, Rav Amar Amar Kra, Ya'amad Chai, a passage that we've had before by this Irla Azazel. It says Ya'amad Chai should be stood alive. Ad Masa Yizakik La'amad Chai. Until when does this Irla Azazel have to be alive? Ad Shas Kapara, until there is the Kapara with the Seir Lifnim. Ve'imasa Shas Kapara B'Shas Matan Damim V'Su B'Shas Matan Damim, at the time that the blood is put inside, and that is how we know the progression. V'Sulai, and after it doesn't have to be alive anymore, then you can throw it off the cliff. So Asi Mishaleach, Excuse me. So says the Gemara, okay, that is, now we got the psukim, now we know the order, now we're going to talk about the end of the story. We sort of have a cliffhanger, we dealt a few blot ago, we said that the Kohen who brings out the Sir Lazazel, he throws her off a mountain, and the Mishnah said over there, he stays there till the end of Yom Kippur. Okay, when does he come home? Does he come home? Does he say anything? Is there anything more that he does? Or that's it, he finishes. So says the Gemara now, Asi Mishalech Matzah B'Ashuk LeKohen Gadol. The Mishalech comes back after Yom Kippur, and let's say he bumps into the Kohen Gadol B'Ashuk in the marketplace. Omer lo, he says to the Kohen Gadol, Ishi Kohen Gadol, my master Kohen Gadol, Asinu Shlichasecha, I did your shlichus, I did your that which you sent me to do. Matzah Bebeisai, let's say he didn't bump into the Kohen Gadol in the street, he saw him in his house, he didn't have to give all the salutations, but rather you would just say, Amar Loi, Mechaye Chayim, Asinu Shlichasai. Mechaye Chayim, the one that gives life, referring to Hashem, I did your shlichus. So now we're seeing two different ways that the one that did his shlichus would tell it over to the Kohen Gadol. If he's in public, you got to give the Kohen Gadol honor. You're meeting the king Ki'ilu in the street. You got to say, Ishi Kohen Gadol. And then you tell him I did it. But if you meet him at home, then you just say, Mechaye Chayim. Now the Gemara finds these words, Mechaye Chayim, referring to Hashem as the one that gives life, to be interesting. And based over that, we segue a little bit off topic, a quick agadata into these words. Amar Rabbah. We're about 13 lines from the bottom of Ayin Aleph, excuse me. The first one of the line is Mifteri. Amar Rabbah, ki Mifteri Rabbanim me'adad b'bedisa. When the Rabbanim would take leave of each other, b'bedisa Amri hachi mechayei chayim yitel l'cha chayim. They would say, mechayei chayim, the one that gives life, referring to Hashem, yitel l'cha chayim, should give you life. Aruchim v'tayvim mesukanim. Good years and proper years. That's what Hashem should give you. And now another makar for similar wording is Halech Lefanei Hashem B'Artus HaChayim. David HaMelech says, "Es Halech Lefanei Hashem." I should walk in front of Hashem B'Artus HaChayim. Different. Till now we talk about the Mechayei Chayim. Now it says B'Artus HaChayim, the land of the living. Amar Rav Yehuda Zemakim Shukim. This refers to the place of the market. It's a place that you could sustain yourself. Now another pasuk Ki Oirech Yomim Shnois Chayim V'Shalom Yosifu Lacha. Of music fame. It says, Ki oirech yam, in the length of the days, Ushnois Chayim, in the years of life, Yosifu L'cha, they should add on to you. Ki oirech yam, Ushnois Chayim, Ushalom, Yosifu L'cha, V'chiyesh, Shanim Shal Chayim, V'yeshanim Sheina Shal Chayim. What does that mean? It says, Ushnois Chayim, in years of life. Of course, what does that mean? There are years of life and years not of life. Amar Rav Elazar, yes. These are the years that went from bad to good. Rashi points out this is referring to years that someone didn't have money till he had money. So we've used his previous years as bad, but that's what the pasuk means, that Hashem's going to transform the years into Shenois Chayim. And we continue into psukim that deal with Chayim, etc. Says the pasuk, Elechem Ishim Ekra. The pasuk says, Elecha, to you, Ishim, men, Ekra, I should call out. What's a very interesting word, Ishim? Why does they call Ishim? Amar Reb Rachya, Elu Talmidei Chachamim, Shedaimim Lenoshim. Interesting. It's for Talmidei Chachamim that are similar to women. In what regard? But in what regard, Rashi says, that they're very weak, they're very feeble, but yet, they're very strong, they do acts like men. Says Rashi, through tefillah, Talmidei Chacham have the power to change the world. Do you want to give wine? You want to be menasich wine, pour wine in the mizbeach, such an incredible avodah? You know what you should do? Give Talmidei Chacham wine. What a wonderful makar for giving tzedakah, for supporting Talmidei Chachamim. It's as if you supported and gave wine in the mizbeach. The pasuk says, "Elechem Ishim Ekra." If you see someone, if someone sees, God forbid, that the Torah is being lost from his children, what should he do? He should marry the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. As the pasuk says, "Im Yazkin ba'aretz sharashav u'ba'afar yimas yigzai." For the pasuk says, where its roots to become old in the ground. And the pasuk continues, and his trunk to die in the dirt. And as we turn over to Ayin Aleph Amabei, says the pasuk continuing, Meireach mayim yifrach avoisei ketzir kamaynata. From water it's going to blossom and generate like a sapling. And Rashi points out that mayim always refers to Torah. And this says that if you marry a bas Talmid Chacham, then to bring Torah back to your family. Says the Gemara, The end of the Mishnah. What happened? The Kohen Gadol came home. End of a long day. A fabulous, a holy day. He made a party. What do you do? It says the Gemara 2 lines down. He made a yontif for his friends. Tan Rabbanan. Ma'asav Kohen Gadol echad shazon beis hamikdash. There was a Kohen Gadol that walked out with Mare Koyin, the songs they sang. They walked out and everyone was following him. But then they saw Shmai V'Avtalyon. They saw Talmidei Chachamim. Shavku l'Didev Azabas Shmai V'Avtalyon. They left the Kohen Gadol and they went after Shmai V'Avtalyon because you follow Talmidei Chacham are even more important. L'Saif. At the end of the day, also Shmai V'Avtalyon lifted him in the Kohen Gadol. So Shmai V'Avtalyon came to the Kohen Gadol and the Kohen Gadol said to them, Amar le Yosem b'nei Amamin l'shalom. Let the b'nei Amamin, let those of nations go in peace. Referring to Shmai V'Avtalyon, a bit of a derogatory wording. Why? Because Shmai V'Avtalyon were Gerim. So the Kohen Gadol was putting them down. You took away all my glory. You should go in peace, the one of the nations. Amar le Shmai V'Avtalyon said, Yosem b'nei Amamin l'shalom. The Ovdin of the Aaron. We did the path of Aaron, we pursued peace. For the lazy by our Aaron, this Kohen Gadol Shalom, the Ovid of the Aaron, because he did not pursue peace, he wanted just to put us down. And that is that. Just one point to mention, it says he came home and he made a party. How do you have food prepared? It was Yom Kippur. So some of the Mefarshim explain that all the Kohanim Gedalim had such incredible bitachon that they were going to come home. They prepared the Suda even before Yom Tif. Says the Mishnah, Kohen Gadol mishamish b'shmoineh kelim. A Kohen Gadol wears 8 garments. V'hedya, b'arba. V'ksaynes, mechlasayim, b'stefes v'amnit. The 4 garments of a Kohen Hedyot, of course, with Ksaynes. Maybe tomorrow we'll show some more pictures. The shirt, the bechlasayim, the pants, misnefes, the hat, avnei, the belt which we've dealt with extensively. Ma'aslei Kohen Gadol, 4 more, chayshin ephod, male vitzitz, the apron and the tzitz. Ve'elu nish'alin bur v'tumim. When he wore the 8 garments, they would ask bur v'tumim. Ve'nish'al el melech. Only the melech ulav vezin ulishat tzibur sarich lai. Not any person stam could ask the bur v'tumim. Only the melech, the head of the bezdin, or someone that the tzibur needed. Says the Gemara Tanu Rabbanan. Devarim shenemar bem sheish chudin kafel shisha. Whenever it says by any of the begadim sheish, 6-fold, chudin kafel shisha, that means that the threads were 6-fold. Basically, with 6 different threads in every single thread were comprised of 6 threads. Mashlar, when it says the words mashlar, spun or twined, shmaina meant there were going to be 8 threads in each thread. Me'il, shnei masar. Now the Brisa continues, the me'il, the robe of the Kohen Gadol, which was made out of tcheles, had 12-fold strands. Paroiches of the Beis Hamikdash, Esrim V'Arba, was 24 strands. Chayshin Ve'ephod were Esrim U'Shmoine, 28 strands. Chutin Kafel Shisha. Now we go back. Let's go into this Brisa. Again, the Brisa started off and said when it says Chutin is 6, Mashar is 8, the Me'il is 12, the Breichas is 24, Chayshin Ephod is 28. Again, referring to the strands, the individual threads that were inside each and every strand when they woven all the different begadim. Says the Gemara, Chutin Kafel Shisha. Now, when it says chutin, what does that mean? That means they're spun 6-fold. Menalan damar kra, vayasu es haksaynes sheish, vesam isnefes sheish, vesberi amigbai sheish. Says the pasuk, which we're going to see, it says the word sheish 6 times. Vyas says haksaynes sheish, vesnefes sheish, vesberi amigbai sheish, the hat sheish, vesnefes abad sheish, mosar, vesbechse abad sheish masar. Excuse me, 4 times it says sheish. 5 times. I counted wrong. Let's say one more time. Again, V'yasu es ksaynes sheish. That's misnefesh sheish. It's probably sheish v'chsei abad sheish. How do we have 5? 1 second, because the Gemara now says chamisha kroi ksivi. One more time. Because it said michlasei bud, right? Excuse me, because the word bud also means linen. So it said 4 times the word sheish and 1 time the word bud. So there's 5 times that the pasuk says linen. Let's just point that out again so everyone can see. Bud means linen and sheish means linen. So the pasuk says linen 5 different times. So what do we do with the 5 mentions of linen? 1 to teach you was made out of linen. The kisna was made out of linen. The have. 1 to teach you that there were 6 threads in each one. That they were spun. begadim, all the other garments. And want to teach you that it's likuva, that it has to be this way, and if it's not, it is possible. Says the Gemara, "My mashma the high sheish kitna." How do you know the word sheish? We know because article translation. But how do we know that the word sheish means kitna, means linen? Who Amar Rav Yosi Rav Chanina Damar Kra? It says in the pasuk bad. Excuse me. Damar Kra. It says in the pasuk bad. Davar ha'olam in akarka bad. So then it comes out from the ground bad, stalk by stalk, which refers to linen. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Ve'ime imra. Maybe it refers to wool. Of course, wool doesn't come from the ground, but wool comes off the sheep in a similar fashion, single strands. Explains the Gemara, imra if sule mifsala. That wool breaks into it splinters. We'll call it. It splits. So therefore, it's not referring to wool. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? Kitanami if saluim mifsal. Linen also splits. Answers the Gemara, kitana agav lukute mifsal. No, linen only splits when you bang it and you beat it, but wool splits on its own. So that's how we know that the word sheish refers to linen. Ravina Amar comes along Ravina, and he explains mehacha. There's a different pasuk that teaches us that sheish refers to linen. Pa'arei pishin yu al reisham. A pasuk in Yecheskel that says that the linen turbans were al reisham on their heads. Umichla say pishtam, and the linen pants yu al masnehem should be on their loins. So we see from the pasuk that the word sheish means pishtam, means linen. Amalei Ravashi. Very good, Ravina. You give me a raya from Yecheskel, from the Vim. But how do we know before Yecheskel came along that the clothing was made out of linen? Answers the Gemara. Ravashi, 1 second. You just told me your Yecheskel's not a good raya? This halacha, the halacha that if a kohen gadol doesn't have a bris milah for whatever reason, is not allowed to work in the Beis Hamikdash. We didn't learn from Moshe, we didn't learn from Yecheskel, because the pasuk says kol benichol aral leiva varal basar lo yavar al mikdash shayla sharseni homak midas Yecheskel man amra. So the Gemara retorts and says we do find times that Mekayers come from Yecheskel. So why are you bothered that it comes from Yecheskel? So what do you have to explain? Ella, what are you going to tell me? Kamara Gemirala. It's Allah Moshe Sinai and Fas Yecheskel v'asmachta v'smacha kra. And Yecheskel came and made asmachta. Chanami Kamara Gemirala v'as Yecheskel v'asmacha kra. So we have two Mekayers that we know that sheish means linen, either from the pasuk of Yecheskel that says it explicitly, or from the previous pasuk that said the word sheish bad 5 different times, one of them referring to that the word sheish means linen. And now we continue the brayso. We started off in the Gemara. The first thing was sheish is linen. The next thing was mashzar, meant shemaina. There were 8 strands. Menalin, how do we know that? The Chsiv says the Gemara, v'yas al shulei amil rimonei tchilas. They made these pomegranates of tchilas, a blue wool, Vargaman wool, but Hashani wool, Mashar, it was spun or twined. The yell of Mashar mi Parayches. So we learned the word Mashar for that which we find by the Parayches. Malhalan Esrim Arba Avkana Esrim the Arba. Says the Gemara, just like over there it meant there were 24, so too over here, I think I skipped, 1 second. No, one more time. Malhalan Esrim Arba. So too over here, Esrim the Arba. Again, the pasuk says Mashar mi Parayches. One more time. Mashar Shemaina. Let's go back. I'm sorry, I read this a little bit like a turkey. Go back for a second. Mashar Shemaina. Where are we? Mashar Shemaina. Minon. How do we know? The Chsiv says, al shulei amil rimani tchiz vargaman v'tlashani. Mashar. The pasuk includes that it says Mashar. V'yoliv Mashar mi Bereiches. So the Gemara immediately says, what do you mean? How do you know it means 8? Why don't we learn from the Bereiches? That means it says 24. Says the Gemara, Mashar mi Bereiches. Malal esev arba. Avkan esev arba. Davi kol chad v'chad tamni. One more time. Let's try this 3 times the charm. We learn from the fact that by the Parayches is 24. Here is also 24, means it's 8. Because it's 3 different things. 8 times 3 means it was 24. And that's how we know that the word mashzar, spun, twined, means that there was 8 in each and every one. Ask the Gemara, how do you know to equate this mashzar with the Parayches, meaning to equate it to 24, which thereby when you divide by 3 means there's 8 in each one. Maybe you equated to the maybe it's 28. Answers the Gemara. No, it doesn't say zav by either one. That's why we don't learn from the chaysh and ephod. Ask Gemara, what do you mean? Maybe you should learn from the fact that it's a beged. So which one is it more similar to? Is it more similar to the chaysh and the ephod because it's a beged, or is it more similar to the bereichas who doesn't say zav? Answers the Gemara, why? V'danim beged v'davar shlei nemer by zav, mi beged v'davar shlei nemer by zav, ve'in dan in davar she'ein by zav, mi davar she'ish by zav. So the Gemara concludes the reason is because it has two things similar to the avnei, and the avnei also has 24, and that's how we know that the word mashtar itself means 8, because mashtar, because mashtar is 24 divided by 3 is 8. And now Rav Mari gives another answer. We'll conclude with this. Rav Mari Amar, Teyasena Ksiv, Teyasena Lezev, Eloi La'achar, that it should be like this, the Chayshin like the ephod, and nothing else. And therefore that's what we see, that the Chayshin and the ephod is 28, and nothing else special than the Chayshin and ephod. But everything else is going to be similar to the Pareichas, 24, divided by the 3 types of materials inside each strand. 8 times 3 is 24. We'll pick up from here tomorrow.